Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. Before we jump into the Market Monday, I have a few announcements to make. First of all, we are going to be putting a lot more content out on an alternative channel over at the Rogue Market. So I'll have a link in the description below. This is going to be a secondary channel. Let me just explain what's going on with YouTube at the moment. You can go check my Social Blade numbers, or you can just go and check any other metric to where you can look at YouTube views per month, subscribers per month. My channel is definitely in a free fall, and I think it's because I'm appealing to too many different audiences and therefore appealing to no one. So I'm going to be starting some specific channels. I'm going to keep the Rogue Deck Builder, and Market Mondays are going to stay on the Rogue Deck Builder because they're more of the style of what I think the Rogue Deck Builder is going to be going forward with. It's just me getting on, kind of taping a video and speaking my mind. So I'm going to have a lot more of those type of videos on Rogue Deck Builder. However, the edited type videos are going to be going over to the secondary channels. The first one that I'm going to create is the Rogue Market, which is going to hopefully put out 3 to 5 videos per week. And they're going to be more tuned, more edited, more on the point. A lot of people don't appreciate the 30, 35, 40-minute videos of the Market Monday. I know a lot of you do appreciate it, and you do like my personality and my information that I share. So Market Monday is not going anywhere with this style. It will stay on the Rogue Deck Builder. However, later today, we are going to have kind of like a wrap up for this video, or kind of the bullet points that we talk about in this video. And I'll give you some actual specs or some actual more edited information on where to go with the topic we're going to be talking about. So definitely go over to the channel, the Rogue Market, give it a sub, and be looking for that video later on today. Also, we have some interesting things right now with the expected value. This is a great resource, by the way. If you go over to MTG Stocks, Analytics, Expected Value, this is a better breakdown, in my opinion, than Dongler has been in the past. So you can look at the TCG low, the average, and the market price for each set by opening the expected value based on booster box value and product value. Sets that are sold in booster boxes will show the expected value per booster box. Sets that are sold as products like dual decks will show the full value of the product. So you can come over here and you can look at the total value. This is what you're expected to open if you were to open a box of, on average, of any one of these Magic the Gathering products. So right now there's some interesting ones here, which I was looking at the dual decks, both the dual decks Elves versus Inventors, as well as the dual decks Merfolk versus Goblins, are pretty decent value at the price that I can get them for. So I'm thinking that I can get these for $11 a piece if you're a patron. I'll have to double check and see what the exact price on these are. But I mean, this is actually pretty quick for these to start going up in value. I know Elves versus Inventors bottomed out, but it looks like it's starting to decently slide up, especially this average or the market price. That's market price is probably the best metric for TCG player. I know a lot of people don't use it just because there's not enough info. If a card is not that hot at the moment, it's going to have a weird market metric just because there's not a lot of data to go off of. So, and I don't know how TCG player, if it's putting like all anywhere from near mint to moderately played or damaged in this equation. So for example, if it's a low demand card and somehow like 4 moderately played cards were sold, it might skew the value. Sometimes too, TCG, you can find some crazy deals on TCG player. And like, for example, I bought, what was it? There was the dinosaur, the 3-mana one, 2/5. I bought a ton of them for 15 cents a piece, but it was just one seller that was selling them. So it doesn't give a very accurate representation of probably where the market price or the moving price of the cards are. So anyway, I definitely suggest you come over to MTG Stocks and start utilizing some of these metrics. I'm very impressed with the kind of the later updates with MTG Stocks. It was kind of funny because MTG Stocks was on the low list of sites that I checked, and now it's actually pretty high on my daily routine of checking out the market, the MTG market. I've quit using MTG Price completely because it's just not updated very well. And some of the other ones I've used in the past too, I don't use at all anymore. So still MTG Stocks, MTG Goldfish, those are the bread and butter of really looking at the price data and the trends. So if you are a patron, I highly, highly suggest and encourage you to look into these Elves versus Inventors and the what's the other one? The Merfolk versus Goblins. I can still get both of them from distributors, and I believe the price is very low. So to explain that, we have a tier over at our Patreon. This is how we make money on the Rogue Deck Builder. It's what keeps the shop going. At least it keeps these Market Mondays going. So I highly encourage, if you do like these Market Monday, to come over, give us a $1 tip on Patreon to remove the ads and feel not guilty about it. Or you can sign up for the higher tiers of the $20 or above. Will get you products at distributor price. And everyone that signs up for this tends to make their money back very quickly. I've been able to send off as many as 7 cases of a particular set, like Battle Bond or Unstable. Everything that we don't use in the shop is given or is free game for all of our tier, Pirate Plunder tier and above. So again, there's our shameless self-promotion for the day. Definitely go over and check patreon.com/roguedeckbuilder for these sweet deals. All right, so let's get on to the topic at hand. This is Guilds of Ravnica. Guilds of Ravnica, Guilds of Ravnica, Guilds of Ravnica. So I'm going to do a cardinal sin right now in an MTG Finance community. I'm going to speculate on Standard. In fact, this used to be my bread and butter with how I would flip cards post-rotation when they became from bad to good. And it used to be, my picks back in the day were a lot better. Like, one of my best picks ever was Hellrider. Hellrider was a card that I went all in on from Innistrad days. It saw no play during Scars of Mirrodin Innistrad Standard, but as soon as Scars of Mirrodin and the all of the Delver Enablers rotated out, then there was a wide open Wild Wild West type format, and Mono Red was the go-to. I think that, like, what Ash Zealot was also spoiled, so there's a 2/2 first strike haste that came out. There was a bunch of aggressive one drops that still existed from Innistrad, and then Hellrider just became a tier 1 deck overnight after rotation. And so those cards from Hellrider went up from all the way from 50 cents, or I think I was even picking them up for 25 cents. I was picking up them literally as throw-ins. When I do a trade, I'd say, hey, we'll throw that Hellrider in, and they say, sure, it's a bulk rare card, sure. And I remember I traded them out or sold them off at around $8 to $10 a piece. So that's what we're looking for today. A lot of MTG Finance people will tell you, do not touch Standard. It rotates too quickly, the trends are too erratic, and it's just something that you're more likely to lose your shirt than actually gain any sort of value. However, when you're managing your trade collection, if you are an active trader, I think this is a very good time to look at the current meta, look at the cards spoiled, and see where Standard might start to gravitate towards. Now, I was very critical of Nicol Bolas, but I think Nicol Bolas is here to stay, because I think that the name of the game will be that mana is very, very easy to, mark my words, there will be Goblin Chain Whirlers in 4-color decks that will be cast on time consistently by turn 3. That's how good the mana is with both Buddy Lands or Check Lands and Shock Lands, and that's the format that we're going into. So I'm going to try to keep that in mind while we look at the current trends in Standard. The cards are rotating out, which decks stick around, which decks even might stick around but might not be a good place in the meta. And I'll try to give my analysis on why decks are popular right now and why they might or may not be popular going forward, and that might give you a good indication of what to invest in. So let's just go over, and before we look at the cards spoiled, let's look at the current meta, or let's look at the current price trends before we look at the meta. So Standard seems to be pretty sluggish. If we look through here, we have Teferi. This is, of course, a combination of Standard and Modern, mainly Modern. Teferi has definitely earned its place in Modern. It's a very, very powerful card. Going forward, control decks probably get a lot better with the everyone thinking like Tron, and a bunch of the more unfair decks are going to have a lot more problems dealing with some of the cards that are spoiled out of Guilds of Ravnica. We have like a Lost Legacy that hits lands, for example, and we also have a 2-mana instant speed Path to Exile that can hit anything out of black and was it Assassin's Trophy. So people are starting to invest in a lot of the Jund, Abzan pieces, and of course Control can go toe-to-toe with those type of decks, and so Teferi, I think, is still really ticking up mainly towards Modern, Walking Ballista is starting to go back up because the Challenger decks have finally stopped being purchased. So this card is outstripping its the demand is outstripping the supply. However, I do think that standard cards are going to really flood the market with even cards like Walking Ballista. It's a card that I'm going to keep my eye on for long term. It's a very, very highly played card in Commander, a very highly played card in Modern. One of the things I'm going to be doing over at the Rogue, I'm going to revive the Rogue Market over at the Rogue Market channel. And one of the things we do is we look at a particular card and look at the playability of it in both Commander and Modern, and look at its investability, if that's a word, going forward based upon those metrics. So I'm sure I'll do some analysis for these rotating cards in the near future. So Carnage Tyrant has a little bit of an uptick. People might be thinking that instead of going the sweeper route that White has been going now, the Carnage Tyrant might be good. The red gets a big nerf, and therefore maybe go big green is a viable option post-rotation, and a 7/6 trample hexproof card that can't even be targeted by the removal spell that takes care of everything, which will be highly played in Standard as well as Modern. This one is actually looking pretty good. In fact, big green fat hexproof, you can make some arguments that it might be a deck. Sarkhan's Unsealing is a very good card with Carnage Tyrant, and a lot of those cards that go in there. So Vraska's Contempt is ticking up because I would assume that there hasn't been a removal spell that's going to replace it. We still do have a very good black removal spell package in the Standard format with Cast Down. Fatal Push goes away, but there still are some decent alternatives to Fatal Push, especially if you do go into the Golgari colors. There is a great 2 of the Assassin's Trophy. And again, things might need to gravitate around it. I mean, there might be decks that can utilize a lot more basic lands coming in for getting something removed. So like value-based strategies. So looking at Nicol Bolas again, those might look good. Razaketh the Foul-Blooded is a commander card. I wouldn't even, it's rotating. Elandra the Dusk Rose. This one's a very interesting one. I think it's just really to show the low supply of the Rivals of Ixalan. Speaking of Patreon, we can still get the Rivals of Ixalan pre-release kits, which I think are just a steal of a deal. I believe they're like $14.50 a piece from our distributor, and the average value of the pre-release promo, I believe, is around $3 to $4. That's the average. They can, of course, get a $20, $30 pre-release promo, and very few of them are less than $1. So you make your money back quite quick just on the pre-release, as well as the packs that are included in the combination of the pre-release packs. So Sarkhan Fireblood, I think that this is still ticking up mainly. It's still putting up the numbers in Modern. And Immortal Sun is just still more of a commander-based card. I doubt that rotation is really doing anything with the Immortal Sun. Same with Muldrotha the Gravetide. Yes, we are going into a very, very greedy mana base, but I still don't think that this is people have talked about this being a replacement for Scarab God. It goes back to your hand. You have to recast it. You can't do it instant speed. It's no Scarab God. And Torrential Gearhulk, this one's interesting. That is going slightly ticking up, but 12 cents is not that relevant. The better metric is to open up this weekly winners and start looking for trends. We still have Search for Azcanta. That is still ticking up because of Modern. Carnage Tyrant. I think, Search for Azcanta probably does get a lot better with the really good Silver Bullet removal spell if you do go into Sultai colors. Sultai, let's see, we have Golgari and Dimir. So Sultai is going to be a very easy 3-color combination with the Shocklands. And so Search for Azcanta, value-based deck. Maybe Muldrotha, too, but I don't know. I don't think Muldrotha works in that type of strategy. But Search for Azcanta, of course, will still be a mainstay, will still be a very focal point for Standard. A really, really exceptionally powerful card. Settle the Wreckage is still in the format, so is Teferi. So Search for Azcanta is still ticking up every day. $22 for a rare is very, very crazy. So again, start looking for deals where you can actually get Ixalan product. I'll be letting my patrons know if I ever get any cheap boxes or if we ever have access to like pre-release type stuff. For what I know, the Ixalan wasn't the greatest selling of a set, and this is just a representation of a $22 rare that is usually like a 2 of in most decks, maybe a 2 of to a 3 of, but you can actually look down Ixalan's list, and there's a lot of cards that I think are worth a lot more than they should be if they were printed in something like Dominaria. All right, so History of Benalia taking up. There have been a lot of people talking about how it's positioned quite well in the meta. It's a nice against... Yeah, it's pretty... The card does everything. It does a good job versus clogging up the board versus aggro and going toe-to-toe with mid-range, as well as applying pressure versus control, or just being a pretty good kind of bait-and-switch card in control sideboards. So History of Benalia is a card that is starting to go back up. Very, very powerful card that I think has proven itself when certain decks were big. History of Benalia, of course, those type of decks, the History of Benalia decks, were good against very, very specific decks. When the meta finally was what we consider solid with the red-black vehicles, though, it just didn't fit. So red-black vehicles gets completely destroyed. And we'll talk about that as we go through. Sigil Supplier is an interesting card. This is mainly for Modern, but we do have a big Golgari and Dimir utilizing your graveyard-based strategy. So that might be the reason why this is going up even further. I think this is mainly just because of the Vengevine deck. This Cloakera, don't have to worry about this. This is just one of those M19 cards that is in the welcome decks. Silver Falls, I've invested in all of these, and I think you should too. All of the budding lands I have been buying at 71% on Cardsphere. I think I dropped about $200 total in the budding lands. I think it's just a no-brainer. I think this will all start to tick up. Dominating ones are the ones I like the least, even though they are only printed in some supplemental products, Dominaria and original Innistrad. So I think this applies... I don't know if this applies actually more or less than the Ally Colored Buddy Lands, because those ones were printed in a ton of core sets. It'd be interesting to actually have a full numbers, because Dominaria was just absolutely overprinted. All right, so Vraska, this is probably Golgari good stuff. It seems to pair very well with the new Silver Bullet, Vraska's Contempt, as well as Assassin's Trophy, and then have Vraska the Relic Seeker as one of the finishers. So yeah, that's pretty good. Silverbeak Griffin. This is a card, I believe it's in Deck Builder's Toolkits as well, though. I think it's beyond welcome decks, and that's why it's 62 cents rather than something absurd like $3. And maybe the mono white aggro. There was a couple cards spoiled today. One of them was a... Let's see, let's go to newest spoilers here. And it does curve the best with a card like this. I don't particularly like the card, but like the Hazda Marshal, when it attacks, if you control two other creatures, you create a 1/1 lifelinking soldier. So think about this in like a Legion's Landing type deck, just a very Malicious Bugler type deck. Yeah, that's a pretty solid 2-drop in the form of Silverbeak Griffin. I'd put it on the same caliber as something like Danto Vanguard, or the Knight, the white protection of Black Knight. So Wizard's Lightning continues to tick up. Of course, this is a culmination between both Modern and Standard, being very popular in both of those decks. We've seen Bone Dragon getting a little bit of an uptick. But down from here, though, when you're down to the 15-cent mark, a lot of this is statistically irrelevant. So what I want to show by this is that Standard is still quite cold, and there hasn't been a lot of movement based upon future decks. So you need to be waiting for a lot of those TCG Player articles, a lot of those Star City Games articles, the MTG Goldfish articles that are going to come out talking about post-rotated Standard. And if a lot of cards that have been sleepers or haven't been in these tier decks, that might be a good time to pull the trigger on them. So let's go to the metagame and look exactly what we're dealing with. So first of all, red-black aggro. So the Beaumont Courier is one of the focal points of this deck. It rotates. The Scrappy Scrounger, it rotates. Carry Zev rotates. But two of the most powerful cards in this strategy still stick around. The Rekindling Phoenix and the Goblin Chain Whirler. This is, to me, going to basically solidify that red is still a contender. It's still very fast. Losing Chandra is big in these type of decks, even if it was just relegated to the sideboard. I don't know if Karn is just going to naturally go in this slot. We did not have a red Planeswalker, right? That was printed in Return to Ravnica, or into Guilds of Ravnica. We had Vraska and Ralzeric. So yeah, so we don't get a mono-colored Jaya Beller just doesn't fit in like an aggro-based strategy. Losing a Braid, but I mean, a lot of these decks were on Lightning Strike anyway. Losing Unlicensed Disintegration. We do have a few cards that could definitely go in that slot. I've tested out the Raid 3 damage spell. It's not terrible, but it's not that great either. But Shock and Lightning Strike are still in the format. And typically when we have those type of cards, like a red deck win strategy is still good. And you have the nice curve slot of the Rekindling Phoenix as well as still have the Goblin Chain Whirl. Now, Goblin Chain Whirl, of course, is still in the discussion for being banned. Rekindling Phoenix I do like, though. I think it's in decent position. However, the Assassin's Trophy, let's see. Let me search it up here. So, Assassin's Trophy. 2 S's, right? Assassins. Okay, we'll look at newest spoilers here. We'll look at actually just the Guilds of Ravnica and find Assassin's Trophy. Can't spell to save my life today. Let's go. Let's see. When was it spoiled? Let's just look at. Oh, this is going down. Here's Golgari. There it is. Okay, it's gonna be up here. So they've got the actual guilds in their own slot with this. So Assassin's Trophy is destroy. Okay, so it is destroy. So yes. This is a very, very good card. And we talked about how Rivals of Ixalan is extremely under open. And this is what, the lowest price it's been in months? Absolutely. So it's about 25. So I do like Rekindling Phoenix as a soft spec. It's definitely good to sink your money in them for a hold, if that is what you're looking for. If you're looking for something that is going to keep its value, it's not too bad if it goes into other like Boros decks or even Izzet decks. If there is some sort of tempo-based strategy that wants a threat that sticks around after removal spell, and yes, it still dies to Vraska's Contempt, but it's a 4 mana for a 4 mana. But the Assassin's Trophy, this works extremely well. Like it's a very, very good answer to something like Assassin's Trophy, because Assassin's Trophy does not get rid of it. So for that reason, I do like Rekindling Phoenix. And you have the 3-drop, the 4-drop. There still are some decent pirates. If you played early days Arena before Kaladesh came, the #1 deck was a red aggro pirates deck. You have 2 1-drops that are quite... You actually have 3 1-drops in pirates. You have the Goblin, the 1/1 haster. You have the Daring, which is a 2/2, but you have to reveal a pirate. And you also have a... gets a +1/+1 counter if you attacked with a creature this turn. So there's some decent little like 1-drop pirates that might make a deck, and then there's some decent little other pirates that work with this sort of strategy, and then you curve in a Goblin Chain Whirl into Rekindling Phoenix. It might be the go-to budget deck at first, and then people that can afford Rekindling Phoenixes put in the Rekindling Phoenixes. Like, all in all, yes, the red decks do get hit hard. However, I think that they like, the power level is going down for everyone, not just red. So Heart-of-Cran going out, Glorybringer out. This actually makes some of these cards better to begin with. So I'm liking Rekindling Phoenix. We'll have to see how well it matches up. Like, a big thing is to see if there's any like spoiled 3/5s or 4/5 cards that are going to give it problems that come out about the same time as it. So you want to see especially like 5 toughness, flying, or reach cards. And this one's not flying. Those are the things you'd be looking for. Like Aurelia, for example. It just stonewalls it. But I mean, Aurelia actually could work in our little Boros type strategy. Would they want to go into Boros? You got to think like monocolor decks are going to easily be able to be 2-color decks. So let's look at the difference between the mana bases at the moment. Like, this mana base is very easy to splash black, but they don't want to go into heavy black because you have to use cards like Canyon Slow. Canyon Slow is getting completely replaced by a Shockland. So you can have Dragon Skull Summit and a Shockland. And at that point, it's going to be very easy to fix. So Boros, the Aurelia, the Exemplar of Justice, definitely could go in a very aggressive, very aggressive Boros kind of red deck wins shell. All right, so let's go on to the Blueback Midrange. Blueback Midrange gets completely crushed because of all of these cards going away. In fact, a lot of them run the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and that's rotating as well. Fatal Push is rotating, Commit to Memory is rotating. So this deck is completely gone. However, we get some pretty awesome cards in Dimir. We had one spoiled today, which is the Nightville Predator. No, not Nightville Predator. It's the reprint of the Nightville Spectre, but it's just strictly better. So let's go down here and find it. I think it's this one here. So the Thief of the Sanity is a 2/2 for 3 mana. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 3 cards of the library, exile one of those cards, then put the rest in that player's graveyard. You may look and cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were any color to cast that. So it's just strictly better, easier on the mana. It doesn't quite have the body of the Nightveil Spectre, so you got to keep in mind that it can be shocked. So I think this will be a big player in these sort of Dimir type tempo strategies like this one, or Dimir Control, whatever you want to call it. However, they're definitely going to have to find some bigger replacements to these baddies here. So Torrential Gleehook, Scarab God. But you also, when analyzing this, you got to think of what type of decks these are keeping down. I think this was like a Stompy killer here. This is a really good card, or deck against mid-range decks. It probably lacked versus control decks, especially how this particular one's built without any sort of aggressive, 1s and 2 drops to keep up the tempo. But however, against a creature-based deck with the Fatal Pushes, Vraska's Contempts, Essence Scatters, all those type of stuff, was very, very tough to really push through this before they get the Scarab God and the Torrential Gleehook online. All right, so this one, I don't think there's anything to look at here. The Mono Red Flame deck also gets a lot worse without Soulscar Mage. I think you still have the Vioshino Pyromancer. I don't know if we've seen any like 1-drop wizards in red. I think we'd look at the Izzet stuff here. And so far, I wish they'd just put it in colors. We can do colors. Oh, nope, they did do it just all. That's lame. There is a lot of wizard. I mean, this is Ravnica. Very, very big wizards set. And can it possibly go over to blue-red and get a few more aggressive? Like, Ixalan has a lot of. It's got the 1/1 Siren. It's pretty aggressive. I don't know if it wants to go in that slot, but I'm thinking this deck actually gets hurt more than even just the typical red deck wins type decks. Like, you still want the payoff for Wizards Lightning. They might be pushing it back over to blue-red Wizards for that. There will be a deck. Mark my words, there still will be a Wizards Lightning deck. Flame of Keld is still very powerful where you have something in empty your hand. Boomot Courier was a huge synergy with this type of card, though. We do lose Soulscar Mage. So yeah, this one doesn't really have any investable targets either in it. So I'm not sure like Flame of Keld would be something. I think that it's hit its day in the sun, and there's nothing really in the sideboard here to look at. All right, so the White-Blue Godpharaoh's Gift is completely gone. We're not going to look at it. Esper Control also is going to be hurt very much for Torrential Gleehook. The Teferis are going to probably have to go back over to the heavier control or to the Fog route. And I think the Fog deck is going to be a real contender out the gates. Glimmer, I think, has some replacements that you can have in this slot. Disallow also rotates, that's a big deal. Disallow could take care of some really tricky triggers. One being like a Teferi ult trigger or many other Planeswalker triggers. And yeah, so I think that's going to hurt control decks in the short term without Disallow. We'll have to see how much of an impact this card actually had. We still do. The thing about like blue control decks is they still do have a very good package with counterspells. Syncopate sticks around, Essence Scatter sticks around, Negate sticks around. There is a Raid Disallow or just cancel itself that sticks around. And but other than that, yeah, Teferi is probably a decent place to sink your money to, unless you really do worry about how much of an impact the alternate art Teferi or the Masterpiece Teferi boxes are going to have on the price of Teferi. All right, so we're going to go on to the next one, which is this Mono Blue Tempo. This is an interesting deck because I don't think anything here really rotates. I think Nimble and Obstructionist is something that can be replaced. Yes, a flash 3/1 flyer, but it was a 2-of. The Trickster is still here. The Slitherblade is easily replaced by a Merfolk that does the exact same thing. The Siren's Storm Tamer sticks around. Brawl does rotate, but again, it's a 2-of. There might be something else in that slot. But the Tempest de Jin still also sticks around. Another route you can go with this is just flyers. There is still the enchantment, the Favorable Winds, that works with both Tempest de Jin or however you say the card, as well as Siren Storm Tamer. So this could be a very, very lucrative card. The rest of the triple ones have proven their worth. This is no joke either. Glorybringer is rotating out, and I'm thinking that Glorybringer might have had a lot to do with keeping Tempest Jin down. However, I do believe there is another card that does 4 damage to a creature. There's one right there, but I think it's a red spell that just does 4 just 4 damage. Someone in chat shouted out after this. I'm pretty sure maybe it's a Boros card that just does 4 damage to a creature. Response does 5 damage to attacking or blocking creature. Maybe that was what I was thinking about. And so that's definitely going to be a decent answer. Really like these cards, by the way. I think that there are just the versatility of them is going to make them see a lot more play than they would have if they just have, even if one of the abilities is extremely popular, like the response on this, just having the ability to do the resurgence part of it is going to be a big deal. So, yeah, do like this card. I think the Tempest, this is a very, very interesting card, as well as the Siren Storm Timber already went up for some, I have no clue why this card continued to go up. It didn't see any play in Modern. Someone somewhere has just been picking up, or maybe casual players. I know that this is very similar to cards that have existed in the past that have been extremely potent. Wasn't there a Merfolk that did a very similar ability to this? And then giving this flying on top of it, it's a wizard, it's a pirate, so it's got both those keywords in the creature type. But I do not like investing in this at a $3. I think that you've missed your mark. This is somebody explain to me what's going on with this. There hasn't been any standard showing with it. And again, a favorable wins, though, does make this even more lucrative. Pirates, maybe Pirates will be something that can be played because, again, the mana base becomes extremely good with both Izzet and Dimir Shocklands coming out. Okay, so we have the Grixis Midrange. This black-red's basically the same thing as red-black aggro. Grixis Midrange was the most interesting one because everything rotates, but you still do, this particular one isn't using Nicol Bolas. I still think that a lot of them, let's find a Nicol Bolas list here. I guess all the more recent ones have actually opted out of using Nicol Bolas. There's one here, but you still have Nicol Bolas, you still have Rekindling Phoenix, and they can add as your kind of tempo 4-drop. You do lose like the Scarab God and Torrential Gearhulk, so of course it's going to have to change gears of what it wants to be. It still does have Vraska's Contempt, lose Doomfall Braid, and Magma Spray. Lightning Strike isn't nearly as good in this type of deck. Cut Ribbons isn't good. So yeah, so this is definitely going to have an overhaul of how this deck is going to operate. We even lose Sweltering Suns. There are a few other sweepers that are decent, but yeah, there's some high caliber cards in here that rotate. So we have to say this deck is successfully dead. Nicol Bolas, though, is sticking around. I actually do like Nicol Bolas a lot more in the upcoming meta than I do at the moment in this one. I think that it's been too clunky and unimpactful, whereas if you get a Grixis control deck that can really go the distance, this is going to be a card, a 4/4 that then can flip. Is going to be a card that's a lot more of a threat, a lot more potent. I don't see us going in any sort of dragon tribal, so I don't know if a Sarkhan Nicol Bolas is the right. We haven't seen, I don't think, any dragons split out of Ravnica. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some cards that have to be replaced here for a Grixis deck, but Nicol Bolas is still one I like post rotation. All right, so let's go back to the meta and the Stompy. So this is a blue-green Stompy. Stompy's been pushed out of the meta. It's mainly because of this deck right here, the blue-black midrange, creeping up in, and white-blue Godfarrow's Gift. Both of those were very good against Stompy. But Stompy's been, at times, a very, had a legitimate share of the meta. And this is the deck that I think I like a lot. Not this particular deck that I'm showing here, but just the Stompy archetype, because there are so many options. In fact, we get a bunch of options from Guilds of Ravnica if you look at some of these green cards, that just some big beefy green cards. There's a 4-mana one for a 6/6 that had an upside to it, had hexproof, right? See if I can find the stupid thing. Are these just showing just Golgari? Where's just the regular? There we go. There's just the regular green cards. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so like this Nullhide Ferox. This is 6/6 hexproof. You can't cast non-creature spells. 2 mana, you can lose this ability until end turn. Any player may activate this ability. Well, if you look over here at some of these Stompy decks, there is a very lack of non-creature spells that it could easily be replaced. This one's not even using like the Blossoming Defense anywhere. But a lot of them did run Blossoming Defense. So this could be easily be a replacement for something like the Verter Skierhulk. The Vinemare sticks around. Now you have double hexproof cards. You have Steel Leaf Champion. Ronus can be easily replaced with something like Jadelight Ranger, and you can still have that turn 2 pump to get out the Jadelight Ranger. Let's find a Galta deck. I wonder if there's a Galta deck that's a better example of these Stompy. Maybe it's really fallen off that bad, huh? But a lot of times these try to get out of Galta very quickly. This one has Bristling Hydra, for example. It's rotating, but there's still a lot of cards that are left with, especially if you go into more of a dinosaur route, you can replace it with the other 2-mana dork that adds any mana, colored your mana pool, and gets +2/+2 for each, or gets +2/+2 if you control a dinosaur. But the whole thing is this deck is still going to stick around because you still have the Llanowar Elf and a Steel Leaf Champion. And so Jadelight Ranger is another card that I like post-rotation. I know it's still quite high because of price memory of when this card... No, it's actually a pretty good slot. So this, in my opinion, this is one of the better pickups at the moment. So I like Jadelight Ranger for sure. As a way to either stay the value. It's from Rivals of Ixalan, which is the set that I definitely want it to be out of. And it still has a very, very potent ability of becoming either a 2/1 and 2 lands, a 3/2 and 1 land, or 4/3 for 3 mana. And so I think all of those modes are quite exactly what like a Stompy deck wants to do. Filter off lands off the top of your library. Speaking of which, this card is another card I like post-rotation with all of the mechanics from both the Dimir that have a lot of cards going to your graveyard, as well as the Undergrowth mechanic out of Golgari. So another card I really, really like is the Deathgorge Scavenger. It's incredibly low at the moment, and I think that... I definitely think this is going to go back up in value. It's in one of the sets you want it to be in Ixalan. And if not, if it's just going to be relegated towards sideboard, if we do see any sort of graveyard-based decks, this is going to be a good... It's good versus aggro decks too. I've played a lot of this card. It's a very aggressive card. It can become a 4/3 when it attacks. It can immediately gain you 2 life and exile a creature card out of the graveyard or a non-creature card, and we don't know how relevant that's going to be going forward either. So I think that there's some good takeaways from this as far as Stompy's concerned. The Deathgorger Scavenger and the Jadelight Ranger and Steel Leaf Champion to a point, but I think it's still quite high. Yeah, Dominaria, $4 for a Dominaria card. If you look at this is quite representative of the set, where just mythics hold the value, and the first rare is a Sulphur Falls, and we have Chain Whirler at $4.28, then Steel Leaf. So both these see a lot of play, and they have a hard time going above that mark, but they could start to see a little uptick as well if they do see play in tier 1 decks going forward. So I don't think that, mono green doesn't get hit too hard. All right, so let's just kind of wrap this up here with a few other decks. The Bant Nexus, everything stays. Let me say that again, everything. You lose like Haze of Pollen. You keep Root Snare though. So maybe Haze of Pollen, maybe this is a big deal for Fog. Maybe they have to find like a different Fog effect, but I believe there is one out of Dominaria that can just go in this slot. Yeah, I believe there is. So yeah, I wouldn't look too hard in this. Chart of Course, Anticipate still there. Supreme Will does rotate, but is that... Yeah, I guess that can't hurt because this can dig. But the Nexus of Fate, the Fog effects are still there. The Planeswalkers, it could be another Karn. I've seen some other Planeswalkers in this slot as well that can just win the game. And Gift of Paradise, I believe, did not rotate because I believe it's in M19 as well. Correct? Yes. So Gift of Paradise is still in M19. So that's not going anywhere. Search for Ascant is not going anywhere. The mana base gets even better for this 3-color Bant deck because you have Celestia. I guess you just have Celestia. So the other two are coming later on because we don't have the Azorius or... Yeah. So mana base still should be fine though. We still have plenty of check lands and the shock lands, and if they have to come in and play tapped, I don't think it's that big of a deal. because I think that deck ran a bunch of tap lands to begin with. So other decks that people, Mono Blue Artifacts, I think just doesn't have enough to stick around. I think that, well, we still do have Navigator's Compass, and Prophetic Prism was from Kaladesh, so that rotated. And that was a big part of it. And yeah, lose the Inspiring Stature and Aetherflux Reservoir. So if people are going to go into Master Thopter's decks, I think they go more over to Karn. And we're going to need a lot. They're going to have to play a lot of more janky bad cards to make that work. The White-Black decks is also a deck that people are talking about, because look at this, nothing rotates. We have the Kai'Sa Freebooter into the Knights and the Resplendent Angel into Lyra. So this is just a good tempo deck. A John even sticks around. Fatal Push can be replaced with probably Cast Down. Cast Down might just start seeing a lot more play, or even Seal Away here could be a thing. Doomfall could also be replaced like Vraska's Contempt. You still have History Benalia. Thopter Arrest is something that would be replaced with there is one out of the new set, and the Binding is still around as well. So this is a deck that is still completely intact, still has like the Settled Wreckage. So these are a bunch of cards you might think about investing in. I particularly don't like Resplendent Angel. I've never been very happy with this card, and I think it's just had this continue to dive down, and I don't even think that it's got to see I mean, this is sort of life gain. It's getting the life gain off of Lyra, but they're really utilizing this Resplendent Angel as just a 3/3 flying for 3, and that's not where I want it to be. I think this is easily replaceable with come next set too, if there's a better Orzhov card, or people can put a lot of cards in this. There's the 3-mana Knight, the 3/3 Benelish that can go in here if people just don't value the flying aspect to it. So I'm thinking that maybe people like the 3/3 flyer for the evasiveness right now, but depending on the meta, this could be just something that doesn't really even need to be a flying creature. It could just be another Knight that gets the benefit off of History Benalia. So it'll be interesting to see, like Lyra Dawnbringer also seems to be quite low at the moment. It's stabilized off, but this is a card that if it has like 3-ofs or 4-ofs, it tends to do very good versus red decks and against the both red decks and against Stompy decks. But the biggest problem I have with Lyra is it does survive Cast Down, which gets a lot better. Is both the Assassin's Trophy and that card that does the 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature still deal with it quite efficiently. But Vraska's Contempt is also 1 less mana, so it deals with it very efficiently. And I'm interested to see. I think we're headed towards a value-based standard, and I'm wondering how well Lyra actually fits into that. But as far as standards in the long term is concerned, I think Lyra will see its day in the sun at least 1 or 2 more times. So that's an interesting little pickup as well. So back to other decks. I think that's pretty much the meta at the moment. Black Constrictor completely rotates. The Super Friends deck, though, doesn't lose a lot. Gideon of the Trials rotates out, but I mean, this little they ran a flash card at the beginning of this one. It's where you can flash in historic cards that can go in this list. This one's more of a Heart of Khran one, but we've seen like these blue-white, more of the heavier, like less control cards and heavier on the threats that uses was it Rafi? I think is the card from Dominaria, and we could see like a very similar aspect to it. Last but not least, I think that we're gonna have to definitely check out the spoilers, what people are really hyping up. I don't have time in this video. We're already over 40 minutes for this Market Monday, which is a lot longer than I want it to be. But looking forward on the second channel, I'm going to try to do a good analysis of particular cards that I think are going to be good pickups rotation. I've kind of looked over a few of them, but I'm going to continue to research this offline here, and I'll give you that list of probably a top 8 or a top 10 cards of cards I think that you should be looking at post-rotation to invest in. That could be your next. I haven't seen a particular Hellrider, like a bulk rare card that is just going to see a ton of play. Deeproot Champion seems pretty interesting to me. It's a Deeproot Champion's a Merfolk card that whenever you cast a spell, it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm wondering how well that's going to fit. That's a card that the power level's there, and typically those type of cards have seen play in the past. And so maybe I'll shout out a card like that, but be looking for that in the alternate channel. I'll have a link in the description below as well in the comment section. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching.